Excellent. I'm Jon Gupta, nice to meet you all. And I like to travel the world and explore its highest mountains as much as I can. For those of you at the back, this is what I look like. This is me looking as the best I possibly can, really struggling to get that good look. So there you have it. But generally, as Jon just said, I like to climb at 5,000, 6,000, 7,000 meters, and this year breaking the magic boundary into 8,000. I tallied up all the sort of what I would call major ascents, and it came to just over 350,000 meters worth of ascents. So I thought it was quite an interesting stat. But nowadays, I split most of my time between guiding professionally and climbing for myself. So I sort of split my time 50-50 between climbing up mountains and climbing back down them again. And this evening, I'm going to be referring a lot to a big expedition I did this summer called the Snow Leopard Award, fully sponsored by Montane, which a lot of these photos here were related to, which was an attempt to climb 7,000 meter peaks back to back in one season. So I'm going to refer to that trip quite a lot because it was a pretty big trip for me. So first of all, I guess what is high altitude? And I'm going to do a little bit of audience participation here to find out how many extreme high altitudists we have in the audience. So according to the boffins that be, high altitude basically means anything from 1,500 to 3,500. So I was wondering if there's any folk in this room that have done that. So we're talking about skiing, we're talking about going trekking. Anyone done that? Hands up. Pretty good, yeah, not bad. And if we go up to the next level, we've got very high altitude. So we're talking about higher Himalayan trekking, alpine climbing, that sort of stuff. Anyone done that sort of stuff? We're good. And then getting into the real realms of things, extreme high altitude. Bit of a big tagline, really, when you think 5,500 meters. But we're talking about Kilimanjaros and the Andes and the Himalayan peaks and things like that. So have we got any of these extreme high alpinists and high altitude members in here? Great, cool. So I've got an audience that know what I'm talking about. So what happens when you go up high? Most people think there's less oxygen in the air, which in some ways is strictly true, but it's actually, in this room right now, is the same percentage oxygen as there is on the summit of Everest, about 21%. It's the same percentage. What's different is the air pressure, and that's what means that we actually receive less oxygen. So to put that into context, Mont Blanc, highest mountain in Western Europe, in the Alps, is 4,800 meters, and the equivalent oxygen that you receive when you stood on the summit is about 68% than you would at sea level. So that's quite interesting. Kilimanjaro, very popular mountain, we're looking at just over half the amount of oxygen you have at sea level, equivalent of. So that's like using one lung to climb up a very, very big mountain. And Peak Communism, which was the highest of these snow leopard peaks that I'm mentioning, we're right down at 39% oxygen. Now, I'm sure if there's any doctors in the room, you'd agree that if I walked into a hospital with 39% oxygen levels and my blood saturation would be around 60%, you probably wouldn't even put your gloves on, you just walk out the door and tell everyone I was dead. But somehow, we managed to function at these altitudes quite well actually and make really good informed decisions. So before I take you on a bit of an altitude journey of the sort of things I get up to, I'd just like to explain to you a little bit about the psychology and why, or what I'm looking for when I climb. I'm not going to treat you like children, but this is something that I'm sure a lot of you have seen. Comfort, stretch and panic zones. Now, very simply, there's also another thing called types of fun, which I'm a huge advocate of, which is this. So fun can be split into three types, and they correlate quite well. So type 1 fun, as you can see here, is fun at the time and it's fun after. So we're talking about going to the cinema, eating chocolate, having a beer with your mates, and that's in your comfort zone. So nothing really that difficult, all the sort of things you're used to. And then type 2 fun, which is the best type of fun, is when it's not fun at the time, but it is fun afterwards. So we're talking about going for a long run. It's not fun at the time. Whoever says it is lying, but afterwards it's brilliant. It's doing a climb, a really scary climb, which at the time you really don't know what on earth you're doing it for. You hate every second of it, but afterwards in the pub, it's the best thing you've ever done in your life. And type 3 is just not fun at the time, and it's not fun afterwards. So what I'm aiming to do with my whole life, basically, is live on this line here, very, very carefully between having lots and lots of fun and going too far. And what I do is I have 2 of these circles, and where they cross, I have a physical one and a mental one, and where they cross, and there's a small overlap around here on both of them, that's the ultimate, and that's what I'm always trying to achieve. The thing about altitude is that you need oxygen to keep your body warm, and without oxygen, your body will think, well, what's the more important things? Your brain, your organs. So it steals all your blood from your extremities to keep them warm, which is great, but then you get cold feet and hands. So as you can see here, it's not actually that cold, but my feet were just freezing all the time. So you can rub them and all the rest of it, but the simplest and quickest way is to get your tent mate, which is Nick, your climbing buddy, and stick them under his armpits. Now, I don't have a photo of what I'm about to describe, but I'd like you to imagine it, that we're 7,500 metres on the way to communism, and we've both got really, really, really cold feet, and it's a choice. Do we turn around, go back down, and lose this amazing summit, or do we dig a huge ledge into the side of this mountain and sit down? And I had my feet in his armpits, and he had his feet in my armpits for about 20 minutes, and it was amazing. It was a real bonding session between 2 full-grown, hairy men at 7,500 metres, saving each other's toes, basically. And I thank him, because I still have 10 toes. So that was a great experience. And of course, the real reason why we all go is for this. This is the magic. It's the solitude, it's the exposure, and what a view. We were the first people to climb this peak that we're on here, which is Peak Communism, and the big bad boy in the back, there's a better photo later, is Peak Communism. So why do I do all this stuff, and why do other people climb? Well, it's pretty simple. You just have to look at this picture. But what I'd like to do is tell you, just quickly, to take you through a short story about climbing this mountain in the background, Peak Communism. And of course, let's not forget when George Mallory was asked why you climb Everest, he just simply said, because it's there. And I think that's probably the best answer that anyone could ever give. But this mountain here is pretty special. It's probably the best summit I've ever had the privilege of climbing. But basically, unfortunately, I don't have a pointer, so I'm going to try and point with my finger. That's the summit up there, the big rocky bit with the clouds coming off the top. But to get there, base camp is here on the glacier. You then travel across this ramp, which is the most dangerous part, because all this top bit's falling down. And you join this ridge, and you follow that up to where it hits the skyline. You then traverse left across this huge plateau, and then go up that one, and then across to the rocks, camp under there, and then you follow the edge of the rocks to the ridge and turn right to the summit. It's a monster. It's actually bigger than Everest. From base camp to summit, this is more than base camp to summit on Everest. And the other great thing is that there's more people in this room than have summited this peak, which is pretty cool. So less than 300 or 400 people have ever climbed this peak. And when Nick and I summited, we were the first people in over a year to climb this peak. So it started at the bottom, obviously, like most mountains do, and it started with a bit of rock, and it was really quite fun. So this is myself just enjoying the warmth of the sun, just wearing one layer for once in my life, and enjoying a bit of rock. But it soon progressed into steep snow and ice, and you can see our lower camp down on the bottom there. It is slightly twisted, I know. But we had some awful weather on this peak, and we were very, very, very slow on the first day. And we were forced to just build a camp. So we were slogging our way up, like waist deep in snow, demoralised by our slow progress, pretty much going backwards. And at most points we were using a shovel to move snow out of the way to get up. But anyway, so we just stopped, made camp 1.5, dug in a huge ledge. It took me 5 minutes to dig this ledge, if that gives you an idea of how soft the snow was, to just dig that out and get a tent in and just get down for the night. So we pushed on, and it's worth saying that there isn't anyone else with us. Nick and I were totally alone. Our bags, we had 6 days, we calculated 6 days for food, gas, supplies, our tent, a sleeping bag, everything on our bags. So we're looking at sort of just under 20 kilos at the beginning. But this is a style called Alpine style, so it's straight up all the way. No up, down, it was straight through. So we're pretty a million miles from nowhere. There's no one else on the hill. A chopper, if you can get it, is a minimum of 2 hours away. And if you want to start walking, it's 18 days. But the setting, as I said before, the setting is spectacular. The climbing at times was technical, but most of the time it was pretty enjoyable and just a pleasure to be at. But it was super, super beautiful to be on. And as we got higher, we realised we were going to have to put in an extra high camp because the going was so slow, we'd never be able to go from the normal sort of high camp area. So we had to push in and put another camp in. And this is us moving our camp actually 75 metres of altitude higher, but it took 4 hours to get there. So we moved it up, and the next day we had to do it. This is day 7, so we had 6 days worth of food, and we were now on day 7, and we'd pretty much run out of gas. And if you don't have gas, you can't melt water, and if you don't have water, then you're screwed. So we had to make a choice. In the morning we went for it, the weather was beautiful, and we pushed on. And it took us all day. We decided to have a turnaround time of 2, we left at 6 in the morning, and at 2 o'clock we stood on the summit, exactly to the T. And it was a really, really, really amazing feeling. This is just before the summit when we decided whether we should carry on or not. But then people always ask me, what is the best bit? Why do you do all this? It's got to be the summit. Surely the summit is the best bit. And it's not, surprisingly. For me, personally, the best bit of climbing a humongous mountain like this is the moment just prior to the summit where for the very, very first time during that climb, you realise you're going to make it. And that emotion is uncontrollable. It takes you over like a full wave or like a steam train hitting you inside your body. And sometimes it's the one that makes you well up. It makes your throat go dry and sort of go a bit weird. But that is the moment. That's the reason why. And that's where those 2 cycles of comfort, stretch and panic cross exactly. Because you know that absolutely everything you've done, every decision, the 1,000 decisions you've made in the last 6 days, every risk you've analysed, every bit of snow you've poured into your cooker, every time you've got your feet out to warm them up, it's been worth it because you've made the objective you set out to do, and no one can ever take that away from you. I've been told, just to relate it to something that might be more that you'd understand, for those of you that have ever run a marathon, I don't know why you'd do that, it must be mental. When you can see the finish line for the first time, I believe that has a similar feeling. It's actually better than crossing the line. So you see that finish line, and you know that you're actually going to complete that marathon, the hardest thing you've probably ever done in your life. That's the amazing thing, and that's what gives you that extra massive kick to push on and hit the line. It's not, and on communism, this peak, 7,495 metres, 50th highest peak in the world. We didn't know until that last second if we were going to summit, because the snow conditions were awful. And on the final summit ridge, you've got sort of 2,500, 3,000 feet down to your left, far, far too steep to even consider climbing around onto that side of the face. So we had a little slope here with a huge drop of rocks there. And we decided to untie from the rope, because if one of us went, there's no point in taking the other one as well. And we left our bags and ropes, and we went to the summit, and we thought it would be like 15, 20 minutes. And we're going on every step, wind slab was breaking out. So we were trying to stick right to the edge of the ridge without falling over this side and without triggering off a little avalanche. And then a bit of mist came in and all the rest of it. And then eventually, Nick was at the front, and he just turned around and said, we're here. And what happened then is I had that blow knowing that we were going to make it, and the blow of that we'd made it at the same time. And it completely and utterly floored me. And to be quite honest, if I had a video, it would probably be the best video you'd ever see, because it was me crying my eyes out on my hands and knees, uncontrollably, basically, which is quite bizarre. But I pulled myself together, and we had the summit just to ourselves, which was really, really, really great. But that is all. Thank you very much.